cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello everybody and welcome to What a Cartoon, where the hunter has become the hunter Ed. I'm your host, friendly neighborhood wandering spirit master Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, and I don't cotton to folks like you around these parts.
Who else?
I'm Matthew J, and losing that kid back there had me sympathize with that horny old lady who lost 7.
And today's episode is the Xavier Renegade Angel episode, the 6th Teat of Good Intentions.
I ramble forth on my endless journey to be the greatest AIDS spreader of all time.
This episode aired on November 25th, 2007, and I feel like some people will hate us for doing Xavier Renegade Angel, but we all love it so much.
Yeah.
It is intentionally offensive and dirty and gross and disgusting.
It's a hilarious show, but it's meant to just jar you by looking at it.
It is a troubling show.
I didn't think this show could actually disturb me anymore, and then I had not watched this episode probably since it aired, and this episode legit fucked me up watching it again.
Yeah, it's a bizarre, almost Lynchian show.
All the baby stuff really got to me.
Yeah.
There's a later episode in season 1 that I completely forgot about, which he just goes to a town where everyone's dead and then flashes back to how a gorilla doing sign language somehow caused it all. And there's so many on-screen, so it is just a dark, dark show. And then season 2 is even darker still. But it was the perfect thing to see. If you're programming a late night block for stoners, this is
God, yeah.
for it.
If you're deep in if you're a couple of tall glasses of water in, to borrow We Hate Movies parlance, it's the perfect show. But I've watched it sober, and it's also funny. So you don't need to be high to watch Xavier, but it helps.
This show premiered when I was 17 or 18, and I remember, my friends and I have said this on many times, many podcasts, I think Adult Swim is the biggest influence on modern sense of humor of the last 20 years. I think once you get past Seinfeld and Kids in the Hall and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Adult Swim is the biggest thing. And I remember we had 6 years into Adult Swim. We're pretty used to what Adult Swim weirdness is, which is Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which is now the basis kind of weird in the internet age. And I remember we came home from a movie or something, we turned the TV on, and the first episode of this was airing, and we were like, what the fuck? I really thought that somebody had hacked Adult Swim, or it was some prank or something.
I mean, they played around with other mediums before, Tom Goes to the Mayor was a very different, weird looking show that was not traditional animation, and this was their first CGI cartoon with an Adult Swim budget. But I will say the show was ugly on purpose, but for as ugly as it is a very densely packed show. They do a lot that they don't need to do in the time they're given.
There's a lot of original models that they make for one-off shows. And it is a very, if you're at all interested in animation or you've tried animation or anything, it's such a familiar look because this is the first thing you make when you're learning how to do CG animation or even video games.
It's just Poser stuff.
I was thinking of Poser,
Yeah, it looks like shitty PS1 or early PC games.
I would say it looks like a PS2 CGI cutscene on a C-tier JRPG.
They're even moving in the same way. They shake their heads.
Or
in
GTA 3. Yes, and
yes, it looks just like GTA 3.
Though occasionally, especially on Xavier, there are flourishes of ooh, that's extra fancy animation, or his lip quivers in another way. It's such a crazy ass show, and the only reason it's so crazy is because it is a continued increase of craziness from the creators of this show.
Yeah.
This was so. If I may go into the history here of Xavier,
please.
Yes, please.
So 2002, MTV and Snoop Dogg decide to do a sketch comedy show, of course called Doggy Fizzle Televizzle. Snoop Dogg and MTV knew just the writers to hire for this, Vernon Chapman and John Lee, who were a couple of avant-garde comedy dorkerinos in New York City in the early 2000s. And they were kind of like, they were always hovering in the neighborhood of UCB and all that. They wrote for Late Night with Conan O'Brien. They had friends who worked at all these places, but they had an even more like avant-garde, like Vernon Chapman especially. He re-edited together a lost album of Andy Kaufman because he is a huge Andy Kaufman fan. And
I never would have guessed.
yes, yeah. And so that obviously comes through in their work. And this that was the first time on Doggy Fizzle Televizzle that they worked together, Chapman and Lee, but it would not be the end. So that show ends in 2003, and then they start pitching a new show, first to USA, called Kids Show.
Yes.
They do a very troubling pilot, and which is so great when it's called Kids Show, and it is everything that is not for kids, but it is a parody of Sesame Street. USA doesn't want it. They are very troubled by it. They're like, no, thank you.
This isn't Burn Notice.
Yeah,
Get it out of here.
But
Monk
then,
would hate this.
but then MTV2 in 2005 is trying to rebrand. They're like, we want to have the weird stuff that MTV doesn't play anymore. So they see that pilot and like, you make 6 more episodes of this, and that becomes Wonder Showzen.
And they're riding that Adult Swim, digital cable, weird stuff wave we had seen at that time.
MTV was doing that as an answer to Adult Swim, but they didn't really have the commitment that Adult Swim had to it. Like Wonder Showzen last 2 seasons that are like, the funniest thing with both seasons of Wonder Showzen is that Vernon Chapman, John Lee, and the rest of their team at PFFR, their production company, they have the energy to do 6 episodes, but they are told like, no, you owe us 8 episodes. So there's always like 2 bullshit episodes in both seasons of Wonder Showzen.
Was Horse Apples one of those?
Well, yeah, so in the first season, they start with the pilot, so they didn't have to make that again, and then they end with an all Clarence episode.
Oh, yeah.
Then in season 2, they're like, you owe us 2 more episodes, and they, in an interview, literally said this was their fuck you to them. Like, fine, here's every scene we didn't use a Horse Apples for 30 minutes.
Oh my god! And in the first season, they had the Patience episode,
Yes.
which famously stops in the midsection, and then you watch the show backwards to the beginning.
Yep,
Like
yeah.
the entire show plays backwards. So part of the appeal of the show was it was a fun show. It was also an excruciating show, and the entire appeal of it for me as a young shit stirrer was just like this got on TV. Like fucking Viacom owned network signed off on this at times incredibly leftist and subversive show.
Yes.
With these messages about like how cops suck, how the government sucks.
How slavery built everything.
Yeah, built the pier. That kid, that kid dressed like Hitler, asking that cop, "What does he say? Like, which one of our uniforms represent
Oh, no,
a
he
worse
says that to
institution?"
the cowboy guy.
Or cowboy,
but,
yeah.
Yeah.
They also hate cops on that show.
Yeah, there's another one going on recently where it's
man.
a little kid asking Wall Street.
Yes, the little girl.
Yeah, the little
Like-
girl asking the Wall Street guy. She says, like, when the revolution comes, where will you hide?
I do love Trevor, one of the beat kids, a little
the best.
redhead, just going around the racetrack.
Yes, yeah. Money, 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 money.
Here's
You're-
my impression of you: gamble, 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 die.
The segment is it's kids on the beat, kids on the street,
beat kids.
So it's called Beat Kids.
It was also hilarious because the lead characters, it was a sketch show, but the wraparounds for it were all these like gross puppets, but it wasn't about just like what if a puppet was horny. It wasn't about that.
Yeah,
it was what if a puppet had existential dread and also was just the stupidest like monster in the world. I mean, that's Chauncey. I love Chauncey on that show.
Yeah, Chauncey's great.
Pre-Avenue Q, which I do like. I do like Avenue Q. Pre this fucking Happy Time murders.
That looks like dog shit.
It looks so bad,
Like,
and
that looks so bad.
I saw a funny tweet about it where someone was like, "How come every 5 years someone has the same idea? Which is, what if Sesame Street was blah blah blah?
Yeah.
What if they jizzed? Oh, great!" And that movie looks like fucking shit. And they had already done it with Wonder Showzen, and it was perfect.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
Wonder Showzen is about staring into the abyss and screaming your hell. It's not about what if a puppet came. Like it's not about.
Yeah, it's more about it's kind of about what we should be teaching kids. It's more it's that same thing of like, I graduated high school and I don't know how to write a check or what taxes are because they don't teach us anything you're supposed to know about the real world. And you kind of should be telling kids like, hey, institutions are bullshit and Wall Street is bullshit. It's like Vernon Chapman said about the show Xavier. He said it's a warning to children and adults about the dangers of spirituality.
That is that. I can see that totally. I will say about Wonder Showzen to be an insufferable leftist. The show is just sort of channeling the pure rage of the George W. Bush era, the rage people were feeling.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like doesn't hold up very well. And the show traffics in a lot of ironic racism where the joke joke is like, can you believe we put this stereotype on screen?
Yeah.
There's no spin on it. There's no like commentary on it. It is just presented at face value. The creators aren't being racist. They're like, we're going to put this on TV and you have to look at
It's
it.
shock value.
Yeah, and
more
we're
so.
allowed to do this. Like, we're
Yeah,
allowed to
yeah.
say this about other.
It
about
ages
other races.
terribly.
And I remember being a message board shithead and thinking that shit was hilarious.
Yeah.
And now people sincerely believe it. They post pictures of like Hitler looking at his gas bill and they're like, is this funny?
I do blame people being too stupid for satire.
Yes, yes.
And also Nazis just taking advantage of satire. It's a dangerous form that other people use wrongly.
Or
And
Roseanne, a 100-year-old woman who also is actually a Nazi, dressing like Hitler and pulling cookies out of an oven.
but
And there's some stuff, not to get too deep in the Wonder Showzen, there's some stuff I feel like this is just vile. Like there's one episode where Mother Nature gets a sex change
hate
and it's
that
viewed
one.
as like a vile abomination and like an affront to God to have a gender reassignment.
I would hope that they would. I would hope Chapman and Lee would know how punching down and like cool that is, and not in the punk rock spirit to attack a trans person.
I mean,
like that.
before I met and knew trans people and understood their plight, I was like, this is hilarious and gross. But now watching, I'm like, oh, this is just ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also
I haven't watched it in a long time, so I'm
the
not sure
Chinese
what.
restaurant they go to. Not the best either.
Yeah.
But I would say that's like 65% of the show is still salvageable today. It's really good, those parts.
And that stuff's all on
horrible.
YouTube too. You can if you've never seen the show, which you probably haven't, because
No one saw it. No one knows that slave song is from Wonder Showzen.
It was on at like 2 a.m. on MTV2.
Followed by the Andy Milanakis show.
Yeah, which was also a great show.
I love the episode that Horse Apples was in, the one with Middle America.
That's great.
That's because that guy is George W. Bush, but they all just laugh at him like, you're crazy. Let's do everything you say. Like, so it was such a great indictment of satire about Bush too, of just like, haha, we're laughing at how stupid George Bush is. We're changing nothing. And
yeah, I love he's just like a giant like foam Texas.
And that's when like, a lot of the Mr. Show guys or whatever were like starting to get old and do paycheck jobs. So it was cool to turn on that Horse Apples episode and be like, whoa, this is like every cool comedian that I grew up with in this weird sketch show.
Yeah, I mean, David Cross appears in it, Amy Sedaris, Amy Poehler, so many.
Judah Friedlander,
yeah, all these cool people. I also, this is just a Wonder Showzen episode now. No, but another of my favorite things Chapman and Lee did is how much they will just waste something, and the joke is that they wasted it. And one was they did a story time thing with Flava Flav, but by the time the episode aired, it was so played out to make a Flava Flav joke that they showed it for 2 seconds and then did a star wipe over it. And they're like, Wonder Showzen didn't do very well on MTV2. It was too fucked up to be on there, but I loved it. And PFFR though was their production company, not just for Vernon Chapman and John Lee, but also for Alison Levy and Jim Tozy, who were also billed as the creators of their next show, which they pitched to Adult Swim. They said at the premiere party for season 2 of Wonder Showzen, an executive from Adult Swim was there, and they pitched the idea of a parody of Kung Fu, except starring the stupidest person in the world.
That's a good pitch for it, yeah.
And Adult Swim bid it. Though I also will say this was very hard to research because of the limited interviews Chapman and Lee give.
They don't like
are
interviews.
Never honest.
Yeah.
They've given like 4 interviews to AV Club where they are constantly doing bits the entire time and give no direct answer.
I like that Tim and Eric eventually stopped doing that because it
Me
was
too.
very annoying. Just like, I want to know about your process and how you make things, but they were very much into, being super ironic and not playing themselves.
I like that Tim Heidecker especially just realized like, let's just say what we do.
Yeah, I like that he's like on Twitter. He's still kind of in character on Twitter because he's still the Tim from On Cinema, but he's also tweeting about politics and about how everything sucks. And he did have you guys heard, to talk about Tim Heidecker for a second, he was on Kevin Allison's storytelling podcast and he told a story about the time he got stabbed.
Oh,
No, but I know
I've
that
heard
story,
from
yeah.
him before.
It's a 14-minute story and it's amazing. Like I turned it on to be like, oh, I'll listen to a minute of this and then probably set it aside for later. And I just like was sitting in bed and stayed up 14 extra minutes. I had to listen to the whole thing.
He could have died in like 2006 or something crazy like that. Yeah.
So they pitch Xavier, and it turns out that PFFR is the perfect finds the perfect home in Adult Swim, because Adult Swim, there's a lot of things you can say about Mike Lazo, but he also just shrugs his shoulders to whatever, it seems like. Mostly, he'll give anything a try, no matter how fucked up it is. So they get 10-episode season of Xavier, and then somehow a second 10 episodes 2 years later.
That's amazing, and I missed that entire second season.
It's so good. All of this is streaming on adultswim.com. You can just watch it and have to watch either a commercial for Airheads or a commercial for the Army. One of those two
The Adam
things.
Sandler movie?
It's funny because in the first episode of this series, it's discovered that the Army invented AIDS.
Yep. Yeah.
He goes to the Army to get a gallon of AIDS.
Can I get that thing you made to kill people? Crack? No, the other one.
AIDS?
Yeah, that's the ticket.
And I think in between those seasons, they produced Delocated, right?
Well, so in between those two seasons, because they also worked a ton with John Glazer, who fucking rules. I love John Glazer so much. Maybe you know him as the asshole dude who works with Amy Poehler in Parks and Rec.
Jeremy Jam.
The Jam, yeah.
And his dad was in ZZ Top.
That's right. Yes, yeah. But they did Delocated with them. They also did the Heart She Holler.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of that. To me, that and Eagle Heart are sort of the spiritual successors to Strangers with Candy. And not just because there are Strangers with Candy people in them. So like Kristen Schaal is in the first season of Heart She Holler. She's replaced by Amy Sedaris in the second season. And it's amazing. Again, and I can't believe how vile and off-putting that show is that they got a second season. And just like in Xavier, it's all about just incredibly stupid characters and just like crazy wordplay. And I love in that series, Heart She Holler, that one of the characters is a video will. That when they wheel the TV in and they put a tape in and somehow he is able to react to the scene around him. He spent the last years of his life recording like contextual things for people to listen to.
VHS tapes of everything.
Yeah.
That's you mentioned the wordplay. That's something else that Chapman and Lee just love. That like they are cutting edge satirists, but I think even more so they are just into like Marx Brothers style wordplay and like vaudeville style anti-humor of just building on ideas of like of misunderstand words and like double entendres. I think that's really why it lives on. Their PFFR's work lives on longer than you'd expect, because even outside of the contemporariness, you can just appreciate the denseness of the writing of the wordplay of it.
All these shows we're talking about, including Stranger with Candy, is taking an outdated television theme or plot thing or whatever and parodying it, and also pointing out how it poisoned us. like including Sesame Street, which I love. I love Sesame Street, but of course teaches lessons that kids either don't need to learn or it can be damaging to kids. It teaches us it teaches us about death or whatever, but it also teaches about how cops are cool and we should all love cops.
I mean, all of Xavier's conventional wisdom and spiritual advice that he won't stop saying constantly is just the dumbest shit in the world. But he says it he believes in it so much, and he says it so thoughtfully.
It's also we live in the fucking Bay Area. It's also pretty accurate to a lot of people I've met. I wrote in the worst. I wrote in the worst lift of my life the other day because there was some lady just talking about everyone should preach there or whatever, and she kept yelling at me for being so quiet. And I want to be like, you're judging me for being myself right now. Shut the fuck up.
My friend Bill lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I lived there for a summer, and it is full of Xaviers. Walking around with their crystals and worshiping mushrooms and all that good stuff.
And it's also funny that after Wonder Showzen, in concept, Xavier seems like a more approachable show because it is a continuous story you're being presented with, not a bunch of sketches together. But in reality, it is a very fucked up, off-putting, ugly show, which is what I do love about it. And especially that after two mystifying seasons where they did increase you can tell there's a bit of a tech upgrade, not much, but some between seasons, that the series ends with him fucking his mom and it getting crazier from there. Season 1 is about his quest for his dad, which has no resolution, and season 2 is a quest for his mom, which has slightly more resolution.
And it's such a perfect example of how hard nonsense is to make. The show is complete nonsense, but also probably some of the most difficult to write comedy and observations that you can ever experience on television.
Not just like monkey cheese non sequiturs. There's a lot of thought put into making this character sound incredibly stupid.
It's one of the most. It's an auteurist masterpiece. I would consider the show.
Yeah, they work so hard. And the voices also on the show are really hard to pin down because they don't credit themselves. Most episodes don't even have credits.
No credits on these episodes.
It's just because PFFR.
Yeah.
And
There
then
are-
turns off.
I think contractually they were forced to in a couple episodes of like, you can't have no credits all season. You have to credit somebody.
But if you've watched Wonder Shows and you've heard all of these voices before,
Yes.
and they're great. They're great.
Yeah, actually, there is a really don't show it to your mom type sketch on Wonder Showzen that's almost like the pilot for Xavier, and that's Hebro.
Oh, right.
Where a scared Jewish man turns into a black man to fight scary black people who exist around him, and he uses constant wordplay just like Xavier.
Yeah. And he attacks people with it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's like, take that baby, and then a baby falls out of him. Like, you got to raise that kid. That's your baby. You created him with your wordplay.
One of the episodes has the only other place that I've heard Hoop from Stroker and Hoop.
Yes,
Because I think he just like
they go to
animator.
Burning Person.
Yeah, they
that
go to
guy,
Burning Person.
yeah.
He's the juggler. What's his, I forget his name, but it's
he's
like
the Smuggler, the
Smuggler,
juggling
the
punk,
juggler.
or Punkler, the juggling punk.
there's like 10
There's
of them.
18 dudes like that. Like, no, I'm Smuggler, the doggling punk. And
You guys sound like a couple of Chomsky honks to me.
I also Chomsky home. And I also love in that episode when they go to Burning Person, they say, I don't like PC culture jokes usually,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do like the
It's a
gag
good
they
one.
say. It used to be Burning Man, but we changed it to Burning Person. These days, even women deserve to be burned. and also the show has like stealth guest voices. Bill Hader is a guest voice
Oh,
in an
okay.
episode.
Really?
John, if you remember when there's episodes where Xavier goes, computer, tell me this, and there's just a
That
guy at a computer.
with like a wig on.
That's John Flansburgh of They Might Be Giants.
No way. Oh, my
Yes.
God.
I recognize his voice. I was trying to figure out who it was, and he talks in like sort of a computer staccato, but it's
Yes.
clear. Any other show would like cut it together, but he's just kind of doing it as he talks.
It's so great. And also though, a lot of the people after this show, Vernon Chapman, he's probably the most famous to listeners. He is a longtime writer for South Park. He played Towley. He is Towley. He's the creator of Towley. He still does Towley. And when he's not working on South Park, he's helping Louis C.K. with a lot of his products. Like Louis, he worked on Louis.
Cool.
He worked on Horace and Pete. He worked on I Love You Dad or Daddy or whatever that fucking canceled movie is. He worked on that. So let's not hold that against Chapman just yet, but that's what he's been doing.
I just was groaning at Horace and Pete. I'm sorry.
Yes. Come on. Horace and Pete said so many things by not being funny.
Yeah.
That's the fucking difference, man. Xavier, Wonder Showzen, they want to be funny.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. gets all this fucking praise for making a not funny comedy show. Like, fuck that.
Hey man, like shows like this, shows like Master of None, shows like Complicated, they're
Complicated.
they're funny, but you know, not haha funny. You got to think about it. You know, you got to
That-
think about how it's
that-
kind of funny, but it's not funny.
I'm so happy I watched Complicated. That's
Complicated
one of the greatest
is,
things
oh my god.
ever.
Everyone listening, if you like Xavier, watch every Clip Cup and then watch Complicated.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the best thing in the world.
My favorite thing in the previews for Complicated was when Jack Allison says it's indulgent and masturbatory. Nobody should watch it. Nobody will watch it. Like,
You should explain what Complicated is, though. It's,
I'll explain it. It's Complicated, much like this show, is a parody of modern comedy trends where this guy, Nick Carassi, plays this character who is like, he's like a Tosh.0 kind of guy who shows clips and laughs at him, and they did a
clip it a
series...
cup, a clap it a clip.
A clip it a clap. Hey, step it up. Like that guy. And they did the series on Funny or Die. They were written and created by Scott Gardner, who made Moonbeam City. And then it just gets crazier and crazier with every clip to the point that like the last one Tit Cup.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
just clips of like barely clothed women, and it's just go and the audience. It's got that, you know, the producers are off mic laughing and clapping like,
Yeah.
on every dumb clip.
And then
show.
all he wants to be is famous.
Yeah,
Like,
he just wants to be famous. And then there's one episode where he has a Childish Gambino style rap video making fun of. Before we took Childish Gambino seriously, now we do. But when we just thought he was a comedian doing a rap, so it's a parody of comedians who have kind of poisonous trends in modern comedy. And then when all this Master of None bullshit came out, Scott Gardner's
and also Crashing.
yeah, and also especially Crashing.
I forgot about Crashing.
The worst.
I mean,
I love Lauren Lapkus, but I hate that show.
yeah, Henry Zabrowski's on that, too. But, hey, they need to work.
yeah, and forget I just said Scott Gardner. So a guy made this show called Complicated, which is It is the funniest. It is just one of those shows. It is played so straight. It is played so like they go to a taco shop for 5 minutes and eat tacos while Italian like 60s music plays and it's in black and white. It's fucking the greatest thing in the world.
That every woman loves him, that he has the world's biggest dick, but he's also like, I got a problem.
Yeah. I feel bad that I'm breaking kayfabe because I love this thing so much, and it's so funny when they promote it and just say like, yeah, it's just this great show. They made a fake streaming service called Viewboo. There's a website that only has this and public domain television shows like Dragnet.
I love that they commit so much to the joke.
It's amazing.
That's great. That's comedy, folks. All right, it's being funny. Last thing about PFFR, what they're up to these days is so Vernon Chapman still kind of works on those. He after finishing his Louis stuff for unexplained reasons, who knows why he's not working on that. He's currently working on a new show called The Shivering Truth, which has Michael Cera attached to it. Or maybe it's a movie. I honestly can't tell from IMDb.
He's like vaguely tied in that world. He did a short once with Tim Heidecker that's like just a regular like short film, and it's pretty funny, but it's not either of the sense of humors you're used to them both doing.
Oh, and Lee, Levy, and Tozy also work with him a bunch. They all not on after Archie Holler. They also worked on At Home with Amy Sedaris, which everyone is sleeping on that show. It's
a great
so
show.
Fucking funny.
It's on True TV.
Yes,
right?
on True TV.
Yeah.
I understand why you're not watching it. It's on True TV. Like,
True TV made a bunch of great comedy, and I think they just stopped because no one's watching any of it.
I mean, eventually they were going to come to their senses. Like, why are we spending money on comedy? No one watches this.
It's True TV, the network that used to be the Court TV channel,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
How did this happen?
Because channels don't mean anything anymore. Lifetime is not Lifetime anymore.
It's true.
The TLC is not TLC anymore. Nothing is anything.
Well, where will I learn next?
AMC made Breaking Bad and Mad Men, and then
Those are movie classics.
They broke television.
Yeah.
But that's where they're at currently. I look forward to whatever PFFR makes. Like
everything they make is fucking brilliant.
they also haven't. I don't know. It feels like a lot of people lose their sense of humor or get less funny as time goes on. But I think both these guys, maybe it is that they want to keep the spirit of Andy Kaufman in their hearts at all times, but they are just upsetting weirdos who make weird shit and don't want to explain it, which I like a lot.
I feel like Delocated is super slept on. Nobody talks
It's
about
the
that
greatest.
show.
It's really good, yeah.
And 2 seasons, it's fucking hilarious. It's another one of those shows. It's a parody. It's a parody of reality shows. It's about a guy. It's a parody of people who shouldn't be given reality shows. So it's a guy whose family is put into witness protection, and they get a reality show, so they have to wear masks and have their voices change. They have voice boxes that change their voices all the time.
They got surgery to get the voice box changed.
But he still wants to be famous.
And we see him get, he's another that, like someone who shouldn't be famous but craves fame.
That character is such an asshole that I love. Is his name John on the show?
It's John,
Yeah.
well, because it's
John
like
Glazer.
John
John
Smith
Glazer.
to cover
Yeah.
it, but yes.
Yeah, and he gets he just has a different business every week, and he just keeps not getting paid, and he keeps giving different bodyguards that end up not getting paid. He gets divorced.
Well, and characters get killed all the time on the show too. They always have the same intro of the family going like, "We're delocated," but in the first 5 minutes of the first episode, his family leaves him, and they're just like, "We can't do this show." And I'm not
Shannon's in an episode.
Yeah, Michael Shannon just appears in the first season, but I don't want to spoil it. But it has one of the darkest finales I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, and that's all on Hulu. Whoever has all the Adult Swim stuff. Yeah,
that's how I watched it. I watched a couple episodes it's like all these shows. They're hard to see on Adult Swim, especially if you don't have cable anymore.
I think Archie Holler, Delocated, and Xavier might all be on Hulu.
Yes,
yeah,
and Eric Andre, which is not made by this. I don't think it's made by PFFR.
No,
it's a very PFFR show.
It's in that realm, and you should watch it.
It's great.
And rewatching this whole first season reminded me just how much how it's both a hate letter to wisdom and a love letter to wordplay, if I may talk like Xavier. But yeah, it is. I love that they just have fun with just having stupid shit. Like, what's the dumbest shit we could have Xavier say?
Yeah.
That sounds smart. It's so fucking funny. And I love that it is a parody of like Kung Fu or Incredible Hulk, except every time in his adventures when he goes like, "Please, I don't want any trouble," it's because he's going to be mercilessly beaten by everybody. Like, he can't do anything.
I mean, we should talk about the design of Xavier because it is the most off-putting thing ever. Like, I think when they were designing the character, like, what are all the worst features? He's got a bird beak, but a human mouth.
He's furry.
He's furry. His legs are on backwards.
He's got long hair.
And he's wearing just a sort of loincloth.
Yeah.
Barely.
And his arm is a snake.
One arm is a a snake.
Yeah, so asymmetrical. Also exposed nipples. Six
Yeah, like
nipples.
6 nipples on his chest.
Yeah, he's constantly walking backwards. He's just hideous to look
Yeah.
at. And
He's like, it's because, and they keep trying to explain why based on who his family are and his parents are, but it never goes anywhere. Oh, like is it this
he has
episode
18
where?
origins in it.
Is it this
too.
episode where his dad drops him off and is like, your bike's behind that tree, and then he's like, see a sucker, and his car explodes.
But he made that up. And like
and then he
immediately,
said,
like, if that happened.
if that actually happens.
If that actually happened. Yeah, I also just love the Xavier voice is so funny. And
Yeah.
and if you were a Wonder Showzen watcher, when you hear any voice in this show, like, oh, this is every voice they used on the show too.
Yeah, I mean, the Xavier voice, I don't know who does his voice. Is it Vernon Chapman or Don Lee?
I'm going to assume it's Chapman. The nerdier voice is Lee. I
Yeah.
know Lee has a dorkier
He
voice.
played like Wordsworth on Wonder Showzen.
Yes, yeah, which there's another, right before this episode, the episode with the ever explosion is when Xavier wants to help, in quotes, a boy in a wheelchair, but all he does is constantly insult him and be like, I guess you're smarter than your legs.
Is that the Christian Science one?
Yes, yeah, the
His
Christian-
dad's a
God.
Christian Scientist.
I mean, I was laughing so hard at one line I had to pause. I think it was, I've flipped more lids than 1,000 monkeys in the soup kitchen of the mind. I had to pause my DVD because I just started to think about that. I love when he's boastful in these weird ways.
Yeah, I also, the running gag of going like, yeah, I guess I'm pretty cool. Yeah. Just it's like flexing, like, yeah, just.
And
just-
it's
the
motion
way-
capture, right?
I think some of it is, yeah. I like
gotta
how
be.
he immediately hits on any woman he sees.
Yes.
And he's just repulsive. Like, one lady's like, in this episode, like, they told me you were a nightmare.
I'm from your dreams, babe.
He kisses the woman, the mom. In his
Yeah,
house,
yeah.
Like the first thing he does.
He moves from, like, philosopher to, like, weirdo dirtbag you'd see, like, in a 70s truck stop bar. Like, guess I gotta keep on rambling on.
Which
you
is
know?
that's the direct parody of like spiritual
Yeah.
douchebags. Is like that's who they are. You're doing this to get laid. You don't believe in crystals, you dumb asshole.
I just love the verb rambling for going somewhere.
Well, I also think he plants a smooch on lots of ladies in this, aka forcing himself on women. I feel like that's also a commentary on those 70s adventure shows of like, say, Charles Bronson in any movie where he's just like, well, lady,
Yeah.
see you later.
Yeah.
Of all the most hideous men have to lay
It's
their lips.
basically Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
His
They're
beak.
both as ugly.
It's just the best.
Yin, yang. This world is stitched from a ballet of opposing forces. What's the opposite of day? Night! What's the opposite of black? White! What's the opposite of salt? Pepper! No, they're just two spices trying to get by.
Liam, you got me! You're so smart! So...
The testening, the lestening. Hey, it's everybody. Welcome to the break on Xavier.
Hey, it's Bob Mackey. I just rambled on in here.
Ramble. Let me tell you, it's hard to find some music for these breaks here with Xavier. Or, as far as I can tell, if Adult Swim did ads for it, they didn't upload them. Nobody put them on YouTube because there's just no. I'm having to put in instead an internal ad that was in that episode from whoopsie doodle at the Cookie Factory.
Oh, right.
It's so that's so funny. So look forward to that.
I do love. What's the name of that clown?
Dwinkle or something. Like that?
It was like Clumzo. It's like
Clumzo. yeah.
Clumzo, you've done it.
I have to clean up your messes again, Clumzo.
I do like. Yeah, that's. Oh man, I've been watching all of the first season now since we did the episode, and again, either watch it on Hulu or get the DVDs. And we have a special Hulu offer for all of you listeners, right?
That is right. You can get a 30-day free trial of Hulu at tiny.cc/TS-Hulu, T as in talking, S as in Simpsons, Hulu. If you go to tiny.cc/TS-Hulu, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial of Hulu and watch tons of shows on there, including Xavier, and also one of our upcoming episodes, Daria, that is on there as well. They took out all the original music. I can't help you with that, guys.
I can help you in a secret back alley. I'll find it for you. But yes, I want to tell you guys about our entire Patreon, which supports all of these shows. So if you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, you can get a lot of stuff. At the $5 level, it's a very popular level. What you get first is every episode of this podcast, every episode of Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. You also get all of our Patreon exclusive miniseries like Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, and any other miniseries we do in the future will only be on Patreon. So that's where you find them. We also have things like interviews. We've done so many interviews with Simpsons writers and directors and other animation legendaries. So check them out there. Henry, what are some recent interviews that we've done that are amazing?
Well, definitely our long-awaited Mike Reese interview where you get to chat with him about his show.
That's a year in the making.
Yeah, and his new book, The Critic. We get to find out about working on Alf. He tells us some real inside scoop on what it was like to work on Alf.
So Chapo Trap House got him to talk about Homeboys from Outer Space, and we got him to talk about Alf, which apparently had a very pleasant set.
Yes.
With good hours.
We also interviewed Nell Scoville, who wrote the Blowfish episode of The Simpsons in Season 2, as well as the Space Ghost episode Urges, and she worked on Mystery Science Theater. So if you love all the dorky stuff we talk about on here as well, you'll want to hear her chat about that, as including, I really loved hearing your stories about her working relationship with Joel Hodgson.
Yeah, that's great. We love Joel. We love MST3K, as if you couldn't tell. So, other things that are new to the Patreon for donators are we have our Season 7 wrap-up for Talking Simpsons, all the greatest stuff from Season 7. We talk about what was in the news, our favorites and least favorites from that season. We also have a deleted scenes special where we go through all of the deleted scenes, about 20 minutes of deleted scenes from Season 7. And if you pay at the $10 level, you get that in video form. And what other videos, Henry? We have more videos at Talking Simpsons.
We have our deleted scenes of Futurama Season 1. We have us going through all of the original Simpsons shorts. So if you're one of those Simpsons completists who are like, you guys didn't cover the Tracy Ullman years, like now we have, they're all there, which
Season 0.
It led to us getting an interesting answer from David Silverman. Like in our David Silverman interview about his work on The Simpsons, we covered the shorts a lot more than I think he usually does in interviews,
and he was
pretty fun.
So excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
And also, the one thing I'm forgetting is that we have a live show coming up at the end of the month, and if you can't make it to San Francisco, that'll be uploaded to our Patreon only. So that's more Patreon exclusive stuff, including our last 2 live shows. They're all on there. Last 3 live shows are all on there. So, man.
Yeah, including one which was an interview with Dana Gould, comedian.
Check it out.
And if you are in San Francisco, it is July 28th, and it is at the Piano Fight Bar in downtown San Francisco, real close to the Powell BART station, if you know the area. Admission is free. I mean, you can get drinks there and watch us do a whole episode of the show live on stage.
Yes, they're lots of fun. We meet so many cool people at those shows, and we just love doing them. So please come out if you can. But
5:30 on a Saturday.
5:30. It's going to be a fun time. So yes, that's right. Patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Anything else, Henry?
No, that's about it. And so I guess let's go back to rambling on with the greatest wanderer, the greatest spreader of AIDS of all time. It's Xavier, Renegade Angel.
Whoops-a-doodle! There was a mix-up at the cookie factory! We made the cookies way too big! And the chocolate chips blue!
My God, no one deserves a mix-up that bad. I've got to help those poor bastards.
Clumso the cookie chef really popped a boner into these yummy snacks! Blue chocolate whoopsie-doodles available for a limited time only!
Damn you, Clumso! How many times am I going to have to clean up your messes?
So this episode, the sixth Teat of Good Intentions, the fourth episode of season 1. I picked this one because I wanted to do the one where babies die. Like that's how far they get to go.
It genuinely fucked me up. Like I was watching this episode and it was like these weird, dumb CGI babies who don't matter keep getting just ravenously eaten by his snake arm or by the dogs.
It's horrifying, and it also so let's get to the intro here. Xavier's arrival. Also, that there's never an intro to the show. As the show goes on, they increasingly try to hide the logo more and more.
That's true, yeah. So you don't know what you're watching. You're stoned.
It just comes by so fast.
Destiny. Fatestinating. People toss those words around like tennis balls. Well, I eat balls for breakfast. I know my purpose is righting wrongs. I'm the wrong writer, but I don't need you to call me that. I have special needs. Just call me Snakehand. This sign, it's some sort of sign. Mayhaps this strange town shall house my rebirthening, and I'll finally find the sad soul I'm fatestinated to salve.
The snake has just insulted Xavier.
Snakehand, you don't know your ass from your elbow.
The snake just said, but my ass is your elbow.
The crazy stuff with audio editing this show does, just again, it's very, very dense where we don't hear it in this scene, but later in the show, like some words Xavier says will have an echo behind them to sound more important.
There's one where he says one thing and it echoes, and he says another thing which also echoes, and they have the wrong echo.
Yeah.
Like the two words, they're switched, so you hear an echo that hasn't happened yet.
The same thing happens with the snake hand, in which there's a translator for the snake hand in the beginning, and somehow a studio audience is laughing at it. But later, the snake hand will speak with the translator's voice, and that someone will be translating it into snake.
And sometimes, like, people are talking and you just can't tell what they're saying. Like, they just lose whole lines that somebody wrote and recorded.
And they constantly read. This is the one episode in season 1. It does make me sad that he doesn't get beaten in this one.
Yeah.
Which is why you don't hear somebody say, taste the pain,
Taste the pain.
taste the pain, taste
Yeah.
the pain. Which they say every time he's beaten, no matter who says it, they just insert that. These clips let you really appreciate just the sound design of the show. And
A lot of work to make something, again, so much work goes into making something this stupid.
And ugly and gross.
And that in no other episode does the snake talk to him. It's just for this episode. You'd think he'd be talking to the snake all the time. That's something to do with it. But every other time, his snake hand, despite being drawn as a snake, functions as a hand in all ways.
He lifts up. He
plays his shaka cheery flute with
and we
it.
learn that his mouth and the snake are connected by one tube.
Yeah, that's right.
And also his butt and the lady's mouth.
Yeah. God damn it.
We'll get to the butt wipes.
All right. So then we get to hear Alison Levy. She is so underrated, I think, in PFFR because she pretty much has to be all women every time. Like she's a creator, writer, and actor on the show. She's great. She's also married to John Lee. So I think it explains slightly why they keep working with her so much.
Her performance is great in this episode.
Yes. As here she is as the mom.
My God, what brand of monster would abandon a childling?
Go on, son. Your brand new bike is just behind that tree. Go on.
Really?
So long, weirdo.
Dad! Oh, hey! He was telling the truth. Yummy!
If that kind of thing had actually happened to me, I don't know what I'd do. I'd save these poor kids, is what.
I love how complicated that joke is, where he's flashing back to his dad seemingly abandoning him by saying, go get that bike out there. His dad crashes into a corn truck and explodes. He sees the bike is there. He gets on the bike. He rides the bike and crashes into a beagle that explodes. And then he's like, that didn't happen.
It's so complicatedly structured
Yeah.
for a one-off gag of like, it makes me feel all other comedy writers are lazy because they're just like, well, what's a funny thing? Oh, his dad abandons him. Like that would be a joke on The Simpsons or Family Guy in general. Just like that the starting joke is young Xavier is treated as a dog who is tricked out of his car to be abandoned in the middle of nowhere. nowhere by his dad. Then they're like, well, no, then the dad has to die in an explosion on his leaving.
That is a Simpsons joke, actually, when Homer abandons Chief Wiggum in the woods in the B Sharps episode. Yeah.
But then the car explodes. You're like, well, okay, that's enough, right? Like, no, then he has to find the bike, so his dad was telling the truth. Well, okay. No, then all the popcorn's exploding and he's eating popcorn out of the air and he's not affected by his dad's death at all. Okay, then we're done, right? No, then he has to also die in an explosion hitting a dog. Well, okay, then that's over, right? Like, no, then he has to just say that none of that ever happened and he just made it
It's
up.
like A to B to C to D to E to F, back to A.
That's also a Wonder Showzen thing too. It's just like it's a joke and a joke and a joke and a joke. And they break so many like quote unquote rules of like one of the ways to write is a crazy man in a sane world. Then there's also like sane man in a crazy world. And he's like a crazy man in a crazy world where there's shit going on all the time. But also I totally feel for this woman's story of losing her children and going insane and the institution and the people around her not helping her at all and making it worse no matter what.
And this is an ugly show, but it's not a cheap show. So one of the running gags in this episode is when a character screams, you go into their mouth, through their body, and out of something else, either another person's mouth or an asshole or something like that.
God.
We should mention, though, in the terms of the story of this episode, a mom with 8 children is sending her babies on the slide one at a time. So she picks one up and goes up the slide, and that's when Xavier shows up as like abandoned children.
She is 4 feet away, and he's like, and he steals the children immediately.
I think we were in the era of Octomom at this time.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
she
Yes.
has like a giant 8-child carousel or whatever you call that fucking thing. And Xavier, so she has one with her, so he just finds this thing of 7 children and takes them all.
I love the animation where they know they don't have to be that realistic. Where when he scoops them up, they sort of just cluster together.
He just like 1-2 arms grab them all.
And so Xavier takes the babies to their new home.
We can build our new life together down this glorious hole. Welcome home, kids. It doesn't look like much, but these sewer walls were built with love. You can taste it. I'll have to be both mother and father to you kids, which means I'm gonna be doing some things to myself you're not gonna want to see. And one day, you're gonna walk in on me doing it.
The snake says, "Oh, brother, the things he makes me rub." Chaps laugh.
So he's also, the thing is like translating the snake, but also the audience because he explains that they laugh.
That's right.
Yes. And you need an audience. I love that the laugh track comes in because I wonder if they're just like, well, we're gonna have dead children, dead babies in here. We need a laugh track to really undercut that.
It's like some artificial lightening of the mood.
He's walking them into there when his echo is of glorious hole just becomes glory hole. And it's just such an obvious edit of glory hole. And I also love when Xavier so many times he licks everything. Like he loves licking disgusting things.
People in the first episode spit on him. He licks it off every time.
and he kind of makes a face of like yummy, but he doesn't say anything, so it doesn't stop his conversation for a second to lick stuff.
And the weird inflections on his acting, taste it.
Yeah, life. It's kind of a surfer guy, but that's where they start at it. They're like, well, what'll be a weirder way to say this in the surfer dude
Like
accent?
unexpected vowel shifts all over the place.
Yes, and that he also thinks that dumping children in the sewer is the right thing to do.
No, they're childlings.
Yeah, the childlings. and this is when he also gets his first flashback to the guru, which I'm not playing that because I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's making fun of native language. I get native cultures. I get it. It is ironic racism, and also that his guru is not a Native American.
Just a
He's
con
white
man.
dude.
Yeah.
He's a con man white dude who's constantly is conning him to do horrible things to. It's a funny thing too. In every Xavier memory, it's that he was tortured by somebody at some point in his life.
Yeah.
And he thinks they're all happy memories, especially when he remembers like, now put the birds to the flame. And then it turns into an executioner's like, destiny's demise. No.
I think it's also a reference to like spiritual dudes like this are 100% appropriating culture.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
usually like any culture. They people do it with Japanese culture, with Chinese culture, with Native American culture, and that's clearly what they're saying he's also doing because we keep learning he's not Native American in any possible way.
Yeah.
It's
Or
just
human.
a con. It's just a con of mysticism. But Xavier's feeling the love for his new babies as he explains to them.
I love the system.
I'll be dividing my love into 7 equal sections or love 5 quadrants. Each quadrant will be worth 15 love units, represented by these small brass marbles. You may use these marbles as currency amongst yourselves. Collect 35 love units. You can trade those in for a beach towel with my face on it. Collect more than 3 towels. What is that racket?
Where are my babies? Where are my babies?
Keep it down, lady. We got families around here.
Have you seen my babies?
I'm popping a peek at a smoking babe right now.
I lost 7 of my babies.
Tragic. I've got septuplets myself. I don't know what I'd do if I lost them. Good thing I'm a responsible parent. You should try it sometime.
Where are my babies?
Oh boy, where to start with that? Well, so I edit audio now for a living, and I do like how in a lot of these crazy speeches he has, they cut out like where the breaths would go, so it sounds even more crazy and unnatural.
I'm peeking at a smoking hot babe right now.
Yeah.
You should try it sometime.
Yeah, again, I love that weird like surfer inflated. You should try it sometime.
I love that he has immediately become a dad. He's just like, hey, we got families around here.
Yeah.
Keep it down.
People like immediately drop into these new identities super quickly in this series.
He loves it. He's adopted to it. He already has all these marbles to give to the kids to represent his love for them. I wonder what you get for those 3 beach towels.
Love units come back later.
And that that everyone hates this woman who is a victim of a crime, and everybody's like, shut up, lady.
Yeah, because
Like,
she's loud. She's a loud woman.
They call her an old slut later, an old whore.
Yeah, he calls her a horny old lady too.
Horny old lady.
And the two, that it's such basic comedy writing, but that's what I love about it, is that Xavier is too stupid to know that he obviously stole those children.
But no one else does either. Like,
No
they're all
one
so
realizes
stupid.
I mean, it called like him not realizing he stole the children ultimately culminates in one of the funniest like story ideas in this episode.
Yes, yeah. And also though how he's judging her too, of just like, good thing I am a responsible parent, unlike you. Like he's guilting the woman he stole.
He's been a
babies
parent for
from.
like 20 minutes.
Well, also slapping her, kind of like giving her a slap on the face.
It's sort of like a little playful like it wasn't a full on slap. Like
just
it was
tried some time.
condescending, like
Yeah,
little pet.
Yeah, it's more insulting than injurious, but and love too how he abandons her and he just is annoyed by her. And this is also, if we had line of the episode, this might be line of the episode.
Oh, I love it.
The wails of a victim, almost as heartbreaking as the victim of a whale. Sometimes I think you kids are the only thing keeping me sane. Now who wants lunch? Go on, youngins, suckle at the teat of my good intentions. Dang, I'm 1 nip short.
I'll take care of that, Snake quipped.
Snakehand, what are you doing?
You're right. It could have used some honey mustard, Snake counters.
Spit it out, you animal!
Yes, so babies are being eaten live on Adult Swim now.
Yes. So the snake hand eats one of the babies that can't get to his teeth. So, and I like that they extra animate that you can see bulges in his arm where the baby is being digested.
And they give him like a charge. Like he ends up really enjoying it. Like he's like, oh, I feel like $1 million.
Well, the snake hand, even though they say like the snake hand quips, like they're like, he's quipping after killing a child by eating it.
We learn the babies are like instantly skeletonized too after being eaten by the snake.
He eats 2 of them and he gets 1 out, and it's just a baby skeleton.
I also love his act out of trying to gross him out, and it's some really good like animation acting of and probably from motion capture, but just of how Xavier's like, and this old lady has a scab, and he's putting his arms out like, imagine it.
Yeah.
Cinematico, the production company for the CG on this, they're underrated parts of this system.
It does a lot to like, I think I've railed on motion capture on this podcast before because I don't like it because motion capture, humans don't move the way cartoons do. So it always looks weird.
I think that's why it works here, because it's an off-putting show.
Exactly. So like they even lean into like the things about motion capture I don't like. They move their head more the way Tom Hanks does in whatever motion capture capture fucking bullshit he's done.
It's almost like when you see like bad motion capture in a video game, they're like mascot. They look like mascot characters in in like Disneyland or whatever.
And they'll even like just reset animation to be like, no, she's gonna jerk back and forth like 3 times in a row. It's them showing the artifice of it and they enjoying it. And when he tries to make the snake vomit, he ends up throwing up himself, which I'm pretty sure in every episode of the series somebody throws up at least once.
And I do enjoy like he's such a dumb character that he gets immediately the wrong idea off of everything he sees. He sees a wanted poster for the babies, $100 or best offer. He's like, the sicko left a ransom note.
And that he can immediately like let go, like, you know what, I feel pretty good about that baby. I'm just feeling full of love units now. He comes to love eating the babies, even though he seemingly doesn't want it. But I just love how quickly he just lets it go, and he decides it's time to visit the mom.
Those sickos who stole your baby left a ransom note, but your friendly neighborhood wandering spirit master is on the case.
They told me you weren't real. They said you were a nightmare.
Not real, huh? Is this a nightmare? A nightmare? Where's your husband, the so-called father?
He died during childbirth.
He would have wanted you to move on. He craved your movement. Now, try to remember where you were when you first decided to be a terrible parent and let your poor babies out of your sight.
The park.
To have a character say the husband died during childbirth as nothing ever happened, and then they move on. It's just the perfect PFFR joke.
Yeah, it's perfect.
He craved your movements.
That whole exchange feels like a Marx Brothers exchange of just like, well, why? It's just two silly characters saying silly things back and forth to each other. Yeah, he said like he'd want you to move on. He craved your movement. After she says he died in childbirth, she lived through 8 children being born, but he died.
Somehow he died. And this is the greatest part of this episode where Xavier begins tracking himself.
Yes. Yeah.
He feels the hot breath on the back of his neck.
Yeah.
And he turns around.
He's destroying her house as he's looking for it too. He's just like
karate kicking like the vase.
While telling her she's when did you decide to become a horrible mother?
And at this point, is she like written all over her walls?
Not yet.
Okay. That's coming up later.
And so he heads to the park. This is when he has another flashback of becoming the buffalo, which then allows a rape joke. He gets raped by the other buffalo.
Yeah,
that's weird.
By his master.
Yep. It's again. I think the joke is Xavier is abused at all points in time, and then he finds the sketchbook he dropped earlier in the show, and his sketchbook of his sketch, like awesome dude.
Yeah. And they're all him. They're all him.
Yeah, like he's clear. Like he overcompensates all his horrible old memories and makes them into what turned him into. It's that like it's almost like the Glorious Bastard kind of thing. Like, oh, I've gone through so much. I must deserve all this praise and be a great, cool guy.
I am the greatest. And that he thinks that the guy is inside of his mind because it smells exactly like his ass. He's drawing pictures of what a cool guy he is. He can feel him right there.
He's profiling himself.
A baby killer. Which this leads to I love Xavier monologues, and this is one of the best.
This is no longer a clue. It's a game. You may have just gotten checkmate, but we're playing Chinese checkers. And as my old friend Confucius say, the hunter has become the hunter Ed. The chaser has become the Jost. Dame Fortuna has had her franking privileges revoked. It seems the portrait has painted the artist, sketching the reverser, who has become the reverset. But this time, the suffixed will become the sufferer. And it appears the baby killer is about to kill a baby. Which reminds me, I gotta go feed my babies.
So the camera is spinning around him the entire time. He's having that epiphany, and I love when he says "reverse Ed." It's like the footage reverses, like for that one line. He's clearly saying it backwards, and it goes back to spinning around him again.
And it reminds me of the backwards talking from Patience episode of Wonder Showzen.
Yeah,
like, reverse Ed. It sounds like somebody trying to talk in reverse, not reversing actual speech.
It's a game.
The reverse Ed. The painter, the portrait has painted the artist. Just his whole speech of nonsense. nonsense. It's nothingness, but that they found so many different ways to say nothing is beautiful.
Yeah, like any other show would stop after one clever turn on a familiar phrase, but they just keep going until he eventually throws up because the camera is spinning too much.
And into nonsense words, too, of like the chase has become the choast. The chaser's become the choast. I just love when they just make up words. It's all just nothing. And that what reminds him to visit his babies is when he says the baby killer is about to kill a baby. He's like, that reminds me of my kid. He knows he's going to kill them. I love the animation on Snake Hand that it's always like waving, like so unnaturally, just kind of like snaking about on his arm. And this is when more babies die.
Who's hungry?
I never thought you'd ask. Snakehand says, "Moving down, eh, baby?"
Snakehand, you promised.
Look, someone left you a world's greatest dad trophy. Snake tricks.
Wow, really? Snakehead, get those babies out right now. Give me back my sons. Aha, got it. Ooh.
Goes down easier boneless, thanks to snake.
Oh, my son, and my other son. I'm over it. I feel like 1,000,000 love units. Ooh. What do they put in those things? I'm filled with a youthful spunk. Gallons of it.
Snake says, I just wanted to give you energy to help sniff out those poor missing babies.
Sniff out, eh?
Again, with the audio editing, I like how it immediately just cuts off and says, I'm over it.
It's like, my son, I'm over it.
Yeah. I feel like 1,000,000 love units.
Love units. I love his little like shake, like it's kind of like, shake it out, baby. Like,
What are they putting those things?
He's in improv practice.
He's fine with killing the children after the fact. And the snake so easily tricks him. I just love also the like snake tricks. Just the little whisper of that. And also that his body design does change. He's getting fatter every time he eats a baby, which makes him only look more ridiculous because it's his, even though he is technically hairy, it's just a texture on top of a body, so the texture is getting stretched more.
He's filled with gallons of useful spunk, as he says.
Gallons of it.
So that's 2 more babies dead. We're down to 3 fewer babies. I also like my son. And my son. And he heads back home to the lady. This is where she is broken and is writing, why on her sleeve. And she is holding a turkey instead of her baby because she is so broken and shattered by the death of her children.
The cops in this are great. Sorry.
It's
Matt.
the same Y, just like pasted all over the
Yeah.
house.
Yes,
It's that Y texture.
And but don't worry. Xavier has some bloodhounds that I'm sure are going to help.
Ma'am, someone stole our bloodhounds, but we got the backup bloodhounds to chase the first string bloodhounds. Their scent took us here.
They were just here. They ate my baby!
I knew we shouldn't have left you alone. You're twisted, and you have the gall to blame it on police dogs? Those dogs were decorated. Look at this place. What have you ever decorated?
Hey, Sarge! We got the scent! The backup bloodhounds have found the trail of the original first-tier bloodhound!
I like how they're reassuring her about the bloodhounds. Like, don't worry, ma'am.
These racist cops, they don't care about her baby just having been eaten by dogs. They are also just as stupid as Xavier, where they're just like, you'd blame it on bloodhounds? They're decorated.
Just as willing to make a pun as Xavier, too. He's like, what have you ever decorated?
What have you ever decorated? I love that. That's such a corny joke amid dead children.
Yeah.
And all. That's all these fucking edgelords. They never stick in cornball vaudeville humor among their edgelord.
That is very much like a Groucho Marx line.
Yeah.
Exactly. He would have said that like, I'm a highly decorated officer. What have you ever decorated? I'm looking around this house. Yeah, just the innocent way that Xavier walks in with the bloodhounds and be like, they're gonna get the scent, and then he watches them eat the child. And
You know what's gonna happen too.
Her last kid.
Yeah.
She has one left of 8.
And they just run away. Like I also love the constant distinctions of the original bloodhounds chasing the previous.
They say the word bloodhounds a lot.
Yeah.
The first wave of bloodhounds.
And it seems that the corn, it sounds like we've got a cornholer here.
And it looks like this time the coroner has become the cornholer. I got you now. He doesn't have me. I got him trapped. Listen, you're trapped. You're trapped.
Police! Who's in there? Is it a baby killer?
Ooh, frittata, the cops are gonna think that these are the missing babies, that I'm a kidnapper. It's the perfect frame-up, the perfect crime.
The snake offers to get rid of the evidence.
Damn it, you're right. I can't send an innocent man to jail, even if it is me. Do what you gotta do. I don't wanna look.
I like how far they take him tracking himself, where his echo is fooling himself, and he thinks this person is framing him.
Yeah, his mind refuses to recognize that he did it.
Yeah.
Like he's the guilty party. And I also love that the echo changes emphasis. Like, I've got you now. I've got you now. Like, that's not how echoes work.
They cheat in a very fun way.
Yeah, and then Xavier too, he's kind of just like, he's almost acting like a scared of a ghost in an old cartoon of like, oh no.
Yeah.
and then he thinks it's the perfect frame up, and that he wants to destroy the evidence, which are babies. So he is perfectly fine with like, I'm just not going to eat the rest of the babies. I don't care.
In order to avoid being framed, he's committing the crime.
Yes. That's because an innocent man shouldn't go to jail, even if it's him.
Yeah.
He's the logic, just to unpack the logic of every line.
I just like how dense these like joke balls are.
Yes.
It's an 11-minute long show, and they pack so much into it. There's literally jokes on top of jokes.
Yeah.
The jokes don't get to finish.
The joke logic is beautiful in the show.
And they come upon just as the last baby is being eaten.
You weirdo! We don't cotton to that behavior around these parts.
There goes that snake again.
It's beautiful, Sarge. You found me, the Ever-Child. Bask in the bliss energy of my glorious love being. Don't you see? The missing child you each seek to reconnect with is still inside you all. But you buried it. You, Paul, when you were 6 and you killed that spider monkey with that claw hammer. You really just squashed your heart with that hammer, and that's why you became a dirty pig cop.
He's right!
So, it is such a PFFR thing to say, you're a dirty pig cop, and for the cop to then commit suicide on screen.
You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
Blast his own head off.
That was kind of a shock. Even like watching it now, having seen it like 10 years ago, having the words dirty pig cop.
I wonder if he could do that now on Adult Swim. I don't think he could, man. Especially not now. Like, that's so fucking... What we didn't mention is that after eating the children, he then eats himself. The snake eats itself.
Becomes an egg, which hatches into the Ever-Child,
Yeah,
which
the
is sort of like
Ever-Child.
the Space Oddity, 2001 Space Baby.
Yeah, and he's the Ever-Child, the Bliss Baby, and he's talking, he can see into all of their minds. And I also love that when he shoots himself in the head, then the blood splatters on the woman as if she's not had enough.
Yeah.
And then the Ever-Child also tells her, like, again, calls her ugly too. Even this godlike baby is just like, you'll make new babies. Just work on yourself. Maybe get your butt did.
Yeah, get your butt did.
And she's happy to hear it. She's like, he's so on it.
And anything else, they would start, like the first thing he says would be like a normal thing, and then he would say a ridiculous thing. But he starts that you killed a monkey with a claw hammer.
Yes, yeah. That it doesn't build from there. And also, though, that's another PFFR trademark, that they have about 17 endings for everything. And none of them make sense. If they wanted to just end with him turning into the Bliss Baby and it just ended there, it's like, okay, cool, that's the end. But it goes much farther than that.
And you, that time you made out with your mom.
Book 'em, boys!
You're going away for a long time, Bliss baby.
I forgive you. You can put me to death, but you can't put me to life. For we are all brothers. What? Look out.
Just hit the switch, Rodney.
You weren't supposed to say my name! I'm wearing the hood! You promised!
I gotta do everything around here.
That bit with the executioners is very like quietly funny.
Yeah,
that is a joke I've heard. I think on The Simpsons. Somebody, you're not supposed to say my name. Or no, South Park, right?
They both did it.
Somebody did that same joke.
Yeah.
And Futurama. There's a lot of execution.
But to have him like run away crying is so fun. And tear the mask off too.
It's like, you promised, and then the other guy's just like, fine, I'll just kill him.
The fact that the Bliss Baby is fast tracked to execution
Immediately.
Yeah.
That's such a great joke about capital punishment in this world too. They're like, no, we'll kill the Bliss Baby. We'll put him in an electric chair. and he'll just take it too. I also love his like even though he's not really Xavier anymore, he still talks like Xavier.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put me to life. And then I love that under it all, he is broken into a friendly rap about brothers.
Which, like, I wonder if that's in the script or if that's just in the audio
edit. Yeah, who knows?
But
Whatever was funnier.
And we were talking about PFFR so much, and we have not once mentioned their fucking vanity card at the end of every show they make, which is the most disgusting thing.
This weird thing in a top hat whose asshole is bleeding.
Yeah, it's like it's just it's almost an Assy McGee. Like it's a butt without anything else of a body except legs, just shitting blood. Really, and it goes PFFR.
And they just smash you in the face with that every
yeah, just
time.
slams at the end of like every Delocated, every episode of this.
Well, that's something too I love about PFFR in general is that they have they feel like their hands are on every part of it more so than they're like, well, does this joke really work? And unlike in The Simpsons where they're like, well, let's add a line here, they're also like, well, this joke doesn't work, let's speed up this, or let's cut into a different thing, or re-edit it in a different way, or just cut out a syllable so it sounds funnier.
They're given so much freedom to make things funnier on the show because there's like the reality is so malleable.
Yeah, there's so many other steps to do comedy than just the script and the acting. That's an Edgar Wright thing as well. A lot of Edgar Wright's humor comes from his directing and his editing. And you can tell some of those jokes he thought of and some of those bits that just work better and make a better movie is because it came out of the edit, which is the backbone of filmmaking, and a lot of people don't take seriously enough. Hey, you Marvel movies. Editing.
That also reminds me of one of my favorite Wonder Showzen jokes too, where it's they go back to antebellum South.
Yep.
And one person turns into a cyborg slave, and he says, "Paint my barn." He paints it, and he says, "Well, kill my mama," and then he kills his mom.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Thanks."
That reminds me of like a Archie Haller Archie Haller joke where one of the characters is like, well, I'll be a monkey's uncle one day, and he looks over at a picture of a monkey.
But so yes, they do put the Everchild to death and to life. Wonderful resolution.
The message is what is happening. This is like a message that is happening in America right now. I feel like our president could say this on TV.
Thank fate, that big glowing galoot won't be bothering us no more. I think we all now realize that our society needs to stop its selfish search for missing children and start searching for the child within. The only child that matters. I guess I'll be moseying on. Sorry, babe. I'm a rambler. I'll put some babies in your butt someday. Close your mouth, dear. You catch more flies with honey than with bad breath. And then I was gone.
It's just over.
The way he walks through that
it
glass,
just breaks through it.
He just walks nonchalantly and it explodes around him.
The way he shifts modes from like philosopher to I'll put more babies in your butt one day.
Yeah, put my babies in your butt one day. And I love how he breaks that glass because it feels like another like, oh, it's funnier if we animate this wrong, that he just takes a step and the glass does nothing. So we'll just animate the glass exploding. And two, that it's another great like ending where he says, and then I was just gone. Like, there's no reason for him to be gone, and he doesn't even need to say that. It could just end with him saying, "I'm leaving."
Yeah.
and then there's a smash cut to PFR.
Yep.
And yeah, you're right. That was a Trump speech, especially in that he thanks himself for solving the problem that he caused that he did nothing.
That literally happened the other day.
Oh, yeah.
He was ending the baby cages by making different baby cages or whatever the fuck exactly.
Now they're family
happened.
cages.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he congratulated himself on fixing that problem. And that everybody just lets him walk away because, like, well, we sentenced the Ever baby, not you, so I guess you're free to go.
Yeah, they shock it and he just like slides out of it as it explodes.
And that this woman's life was completely destroyed by Xavier, and that at the end of the day he just like forces himself on her one last time and then walks.
So she has bad breath.
tell her she has bad breath and then sticks his tongue down her throat.
Oh, that gross noise that I don't even know if I noticed the first time, but definitely heard just now.
So there we go. That is Xavier.
I'm kind of dizzy from laughing at all this and thinking about it. Again, I think some people find this like the very like a frame of the show is distasteful and like impossible to watch, but man,
I don't blame you for thinking that.
I mean, they made it with that intent. They made it like everything they make is a challenge to watch, except maybe Delocated. That's like the most. It's still fucked up and incredibly dark, but it's just people.
It's visually palatable enough that you can sit through it.
And that John Glazer is a fun person to keep watching, unlike Xavier, who is off-putting to look at.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I hope we convinced you because the show is so dense with its joke logic that just like taking apart the things he's saying and the story beats they're going through, like a lot of work went into this. It wasn't just two guys getting stoned and like laughing to themselves, although I imagine they did do some drugs to make this show work. But yeah, I feel like it is. It's on Hulu. There's a if they fucking have a DVD. Incredibly, there's a DVD with all the episodes on it. I don't know if it's out of print, but
it's on YouTube too.
It's on YouTube. Okay, yeah. So there's no shortage of ways to watch this show.
There's some fun extras on that DVD, but if you want to watch it on Hulu, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial of it at tiny.cc/TS Hulu, and a little bit of money it's kicked back to us guys. See, I wanted to get some plugs in there early, but no, I was just giddy with laughter hearing these things again. There's just something about the way any time Xavier says anything is always funny to me.
Yeah.
And on top of that, his terrible, wonderful wordplay is always funny.
Yeah, I absolutely love this show. I love the place it comes from. I love what it is. I love that Adult Swim just continues to find ways to shock us in the age where you feel like you can't be shocked. And this was now 10 years ago. And then, halfway between that and now, we got Too Many Cooks, which I was another time where I was like, you can't shock me. Oh my God. And then just recently, we had one of the best shows they've ever produced, which is called Joe Pera Talks With You.
Yeah,
which I cannot recommend enough and is just as shocking in the way that, like, Adult Swim just made one of the most heartfelt, beautiful, wonderful, relaxing, just great shows I have seen, including the episode that everybody freaked out about and why they made the show the most famous, which I think is episode 6, which is an 11-minute episode of a show about one guy discovering a song, and it is one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen in my life. So I love Adult Swim.
I love it so much.
They do a lot of dumb shit, but they're an institution.
Yeah, I mean, similar to that and this episode, they also do these things called infomercials. They make like 2 or 3 of them a year, and they air them at 3 a.m. But they are some of the best, like, high-concept sketch comedy I've ever seen. They are products presented like sincerely, like crazy products presented sincerely, but every infomercial something insane happens during it.
Too Many Cooks guy just did another one.
Really? Okay.
Guys. I have not watched it yet, but
I watched it. It's quite something. It starts as a parody of YouTube streamers. Like,
I know that. That's all I know about it.
I mean, technically, Too Many Cooks is like made under the infomercials label, where it's like something made to be presented sincerely that goes off the rails immediately.
I love Too Many Cook. It's one of my favorite things of all time. Like, I just rewatched it recently. It's like, oh yeah, this is the greatest. Like, it is conceptually a melange of all 80s and 90s sitcom openings, but that's just where it starts, folks. That's why, guys, like, conceptually think of more things than that. Expand your mind and go beyond this.
I'm just like, one of my growing as an old man things is like, I'm waiting for Adult Swim to lose their edge and become just an old man network that's just preaching to the choir or whatever. And it's happened in certain ways, but but the network, as far as promoting weird sense of humor and experimental television, they've never lost that. Yes, they gave a television show to some white supremacists.
Yeah.
They're finally...
Hey, it happens to us all.
They supported the mass national harassment of McDonald's workers.
Yep.
They don't hire women. They do plenty of real... They just did, finally.
17 years.
Yeah, they've done some real bad shit, but they continue to be the place for experimental comedy and influence comedy in major, major, major ways.
The Brett Gelman specials, which he quit he quit Adult Swim because he was pissed off at Mike Lazo, rightly so.
Dinner with Family, right?
Dinner with Family.
Oh my God. Talk about dark and just unexpected twists.
They just did another Mr. Neighbor's House special, which is that's Brian Husky's special.
Oh, wow.
His Mr. Rogers-esque show. They just did a second one.
And while we're throwing things out here, I'll say Tim and Eric's Bedtime Story show are just amazing little mini movies that gave me even more respect for them. So it's like, what can you do without your crazy editing and just like insane cutaways, and they make these great like little horror comedy stories. They're all fantastic.
And sometimes they do things that are just straight. Like if you want to learn a lot about movies and movie expertise, you can watch On Cinema. Which is just a regular show where guys review movies.
It's all, I got so much expertise on that. I give it 5 bags of popcorn and 2 sodas.
I'm always getting those popcorn classics and finally watching, the shittiest movies in the world.
So thank you for listening to What a Cartoon, folks. Before we tell you who we are and what we do, let's talk to our special guest, Matthew. Matthew, how can we support you? What projects are you doing right now?
I love talking about old cartoons, especially Adult Swim. Have I made a video about Adult Swim yet? I'm about to.
You should.
It might be up by the time you listen to this. I make a show called Cartoons 101 on YouTube, youtube.com/cartoons101. It's about cartoons, but it's supported by a Patreon at patreon.com/cartoons101. It is the only money I make right now, so please go on there and donate to it and get a weekly podcast, which just wrapped up Conversation on Genesis Evangelion, going through every episode of the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion with a series of guests like you guys.
I was there.
Yeah. You guys were on a bunch of it. And that is being followed by Satoshi Conversations, which is going to be just as fun. We're going to go through all the movies Satoshi Kon made, his TV show.
I want to be on Tokyo Godfathers if I can.
Yeah? All right.
Yeah. It's my favorite of his movies.
You're booked. You're on it
goody.
now.
Millennium Actress is my favorite. I love them all, but Millennium Actress is my favorite.
That I just got the guest for that, so I'm sorry. But you can be on a different one. But
I love all of his movies.
You get a bunch of stuff there, and I also have been showing a bunch of anime on my Rabbit channel, anime that's hard to get and out of print because I can because it's on YouTube and that's legal for some reason. So Rabbit, what is it? rab.it/cartoons101, however that works.
RABB.IT?
Yeah, I think so. Follow me on Twitter. I always tweet about when I do it at Mr. Matt J.
I saw you watching some Urusei Yatsura.
Yes, we watched the first 2 episodes. That's a fucking weird show.
I love that show so much.
So fun, yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday I played the 2 Shin Megami Tensei OVAs and had a group of people. Tonight I'm showing Perfect Blue, but this was now weeks ago. So
go back in time and kill Hitler first, but then watch the old Perfect Blue show.
Xavier goes back in time by smoking cigarettes and eating bacon because those take 9 minutes off your life. So if you eat too much, enough, you'll go back in time.
I do love it. Well, so as for us, me and Henry, we both run the network Talking Simpsons, and all of the shows are made through funding via that network. So if you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, you can check out the page and see what you can get if you sign up. We have so many bonus podcasts, so many you probably haven't heard at this point. What are the most recent cool bonus Patreon exclusive things we've done so far, Henry?
Well, I would point people to our interview with Mike Reese, where he talked about his 30 years with The Simpsons and his new book. You should also listen to our deleted scenes of Futurama Season 1 as we wrap up that first season. We go through the it's kind of funny, kind of weird deleted scenes from the first season of Futurama. And if you're at the $10 premium level, you get to watch the video version of that of me and Bob commentating away on the deleted scenes. It's tons more cool stuff coming because we're headed to Los Angeles, baby.
Yeah. We're back now, and I assume that I'm now a celebrity, and I've given up podcasting.
I've got a suntan.
It's a great city, and if you don't like it, you're just a whiner who doesn't like liberal elites.
You and your LA bubble over there. Well, yeah, so please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons to find out more, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you. As for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. It's a classic gaming podcast. We've been doing it for almost 13 years now, so go back, check out the archives, or even a new episode and see which topic interests you. That's at retronauts.com, or look for Retronauts in your podcast device or podcatcher or whatever you use to listen to podcasts. Henry.
HENREYG on Twitter. You can follow me there for all the new announcements in the world of What a Cartoon and Talking Simpsons. And hey, why don't you tell your friends about this show and give it a 5-star review on iTunes? That always helps.
I like it. Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for the Big O episode, A Legacy of Amadeus. See you then.
It's a long, hard, dusty road you'll journey on through, a world you've never known. Only time will tell you if or not if your life has been in vain. Each morning sunrise brings question and query. Each sunset brings you catch up. Always you're searching for what you're not even sure. Melting away like an icicle on fire.
Welcome to the U.S. Army. How can I help you?
I need some of that disease you guys invented.
Crack?
The other one.
AIDS.
That's the spice.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.